Well, I am at the LCS studio right now on stage with somebody who has not been in the studio, at least on camera, for quite some time. 7 months. Welcome back, Jatt.
Thanks, man.
Oh, and I say welcome back because this is what we're talking about today. You've decided to return.
Yes.
Yes. So like every single pro player who ever goes into retirement,
yes,
you're unsurprisingly out of retirement.
Yeah, esports retirements are probably the fakest thing in esports.
Yes, which is saying something because there's a lot of fake things in esports.
Really not real, as I have come to learn.
Yes. Well, welcome back. So okay, just the first obvious question is what happened? Because you were ready to move on.
Yeah.
You went off into the sunset, and then they decided to green light a sequel.
Yeah, I mean, so let's go back a little bit because I explained this a little bit the first time that I left esports.
Yes.
The last time I left esports, we'll see, is when I joined Riot originally back in 2012, after being a pro player, it was like, okay, I've kind of always wanted to be in game design. And then at the beginning of LCS and even towards the end of 2012, there was this like massive opportunity because I was a former pro player who was a sports fan, and I was kind of uniquely positioned to be a shoutcaster and start building the LCS. And that was such a huge opportunity that I couldn't pass it up. But at the time, I felt like I'd never really given design the fair shake, and there was always the thought in the back of my head, like the what if, right? I think everyone has those, what if when I was this old, I would have done this fork instead of that fork.
Right.
And I felt like with how good the design team was on League of Legends, the fact that there was an opportunity to go there, the fact that the LCS product was really strong, right? It was many talented casters, a really strong broadcast team, and I feel like as we've seen in the past like 7 or 8 months, it's been good.
Sure.
It's been good without me, right? So I had this opportunity to go try and game design, except then from like a personal level, I didn't realize how much I'd actually missed shoutcasting, right? Because it's one of those things that it's kind of like cliche-like, but I had taken for granted a bunch of stuff doing it 6.5 years in a row. So I kind of realized how important shoutcasting was to me, how much I actually enjoyed the process of researching and prepping and casting and projecting my opinion out and kind of having the platform to do all this cool stuff. So design was good, right? Design was something that I'd always wanted to do, but at the same time, I didn't realize how good shoutcasting actually was. So that's why I am coming back to shoutcasting.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the experience? Because we were chatting a little bit before this, and I liken it a lot to when I talked to Peter whenever he took that break, and he would just on the weekends feel miserable because he would want to watch LCS but not want to watch LCS because he'd want to be there. And I don't know if that was you. I don't know if you were watching LCS or you're like, I'm trying to get my mind off of it, or what was going on there.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely some weeks where I didn't watch LCS, but I did stay very plugged into League because I was balancing it on a patch-to-patch cycle. And we did a lot of really cool stuff as far as, have you seen the like balance framework, balance philosophy that we published?
Where you define like this is how we decide when something needs to be.
Yeah, exactly. We actually defined like 4 different tiers of play that we were balancing around. One of them is pro, one of them is like high challenger. Those are the 2 things that I was the most familiar with coming in. So I tried to stay plugged into at least what was happening with the game. Definitely less plugged in with what was happening on the latest episode of Squad, or, you know, what's TSM Legends doing today? Do they still do that show, right? Those kind of things, I didn't need to watch those.
Sure.
So I stayed out of that.
So the storylines were less relevant, but the
didn't
balance
matter.
was still,
Yeah, exactly.
So, but whenever because you said you missed this a lot, so what were those moments where you were like, oh man, I really wish I could go out there and say something right now where I really want to talk about this? Because it sounds like that's kind of what was happening.
Yeah. MSI, I think, was a big one. And also the super good spring finals with
the best of 5 that went,
the reverse sweep. But other than that, like, I did the 1 episode of the dive during MSI, had like a ton of fun. And then previously, like 8 months ago, I was doing what if I had done game design? And then after like MSI, I was like, what if I went back to casting, right?
Yes.
That started creeping into the back of my head. And eventually it just kind of took over and made me think that I should try to go back.
There was a part of me personally that envied you a little bit when you did this because, and
Right.
I sometimes talk to Kobe about this. This is a difficult lifestyle in some ways because the rest of the world moves on a Monday to Friday schedule, and for months at a time you are on a Saturday Sunday schedule, and so it just makes things really difficult. Seeing family members, going to events, etc. And because I think in traditional sports there's this big industry, so there's layers behind you. So okay, well I'm not going to take this week off, but here it's very difficult to do that type of thing. So was there any part of that where you were just like, okay, well then I have to go back to the Saturday Sunday? I don't know if that's ever been a thing for you.
No, it's totally a consideration, especially when I decided to go to game design. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have weekends.
Right.
Like, this is amazing. And then on the weekends, I'd be like, but what should I do about Ribbon? And I should check out that LCS game that's on. And oh, wait, let me wake up early and watch this MS. Like, my mind never shut off anyway.
Yeah.
So even though I wasn't officially working on weekends, I feel like I still was. Like, it just doesn't, it's just
you can't
going all the
escape
time.
it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, League and esports and those two things are so big a part of my life that I don't really have a good way of kind of ever turning it off in my brain. So like days off are good to try and not work, but you end up working.
Well, and even, I mean, it's not even just the weekends, it's also the international schedules, whether you're traveling or you're staying up at the crack of dawn to cast or talk from the analyst desk here. That's also super difficult, but you're still on board with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking forward to like Worlds this year. I know there's like been noise about the, like, especially for MSI and Worlds last year, the difficult schedule it was to remote broadcast from here.
Right.
I was in the minority. I actually really liked that schedule. I'd like come home at like 6:30. I'd walk the dog in the morning.
Yes.
Everything was nice. I'd like cook breakfast, have like a good dinner, and then I'd sleep during the day, just blackout curtains in a thing. And I don't know. I was fine with it somehow. But
so not too much of a concern going back to that. You mentioned MSI and watching MSI. Was there part of you that's like, please don't win Team Liquid? Because if the first international event I don't go to, North America wins, that would have been a little spooky, perhaps.
Oh man, no, I wanted them to win. I think that would have been sweet, and I would have welcomed the memes of like Jatt was the one holding North America back. That would have been totally fine. I actually went through a couple of stages during MSI because TL started really badly in the group stage, right? And I was like, man, this is what I don't miss.
Right.
Like, I really don't miss being the NA caster who everyone just gets to, make fun of while they're just like, yeah, I wanted them to win. What do you want me to say? Like, they didn't. So I was really glad to avoid that. But then when they started winning, I got kind of jealous that I wasn't able to gloat and stuff on air.
It's the gloating that you miss? I anticipated that it would be like, I wish I was there telling the story or whatever, but you're like, no, I want to tell Quick Shot to shut up or something.
No, it's both, right? Like, that's also, so I'm going to be going back to casting as well.
Yes, which I wanted to get to, but we can talk about that now.
Yeah, on Saturday I'm going to be casting, I think, the first 3 games. So that's going to be really cool as well because, how would I put this? It's like, it is different than Analyst Desk. It's different than being outside the game and being more plugged in and doing the live storytelling where you're trying to weave so many things through. Once again, it's like when I was doing it, I feel like I took it for granted how much you get to tell the right story and how much control you have over all of that stuff and how like enjoyable it is because I did it so much and I just kind of assumed that like, oh yeah, I'll always be able to do this.
Right.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing casting again. I've done a few practice casts. I've been listening to casts and thinking like, what would I say in this situation? How would I make this transition? And yeah, it's just going to be fun to do it again. Yeah,
why not just do the analyst desk? I mean, you mentioned you like the casting part. So was there a part of you that was like, should I just do analyst desk again? Or, I mean, or was it always I want to do both?
So I also want to point out that the LCS team and the broadcast has been like really good without me.
So I know you say that the broadcast has been really stable, but I think for a lot of people, they look and feel as though the analyst desk has not been the same. And in a lot of ways, this year has been trying to figure out what it wants to be. Sometimes it's just Mark and Dash. Sometimes the Scar shows up randomly, or there's a caster. So, I mean, I would just say that it doesn't necessarily seem as though it's been completely the same since you left.
I think that's fair. I think back in 2018, one of the reasons that I wanted to do Analyst Desk full time was to try and develop the pre-show, which was Countdown, which we hadn't done before in previous years, a 30-minute pre-show before every single game. It was to see what it was like to have consistency and a through line throughout the entire year with the same casts on the Analyst Desk. And it was also to kind of develop more of the opinionated skills, or divorcing myself from having a very strong opinion on the Analyst Desk and then having to go cast that game, because as a caster you want to try and give a more neutral and balanced view, and you don't have that obligation on the Analyst Desk. So those were kind of some of the things that I wanted to try out. But again, casting is also super, super fun, and if you have the opportunity to try and do both, why not? Not to mention, we're coming in late into the year, and I've also haven't cast in 2 years. I haven't done Analyst Desk in 8 months. There is going to be a little bit of like, hey, what should I actually focus on going forward? And those are kind of ongoing discussions. But casting is something that I had wanted to at least dip my toes back into, even at the tail end of 2018. Yeah.
Was that I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious if there was any kind of tail between your legs moment as you went back to the broadcast and said, so you guys, you're looking for anybody right now to join the broadcast? Or I don't know, maybe they reached out to you. I don't know sort of what that was like behind the scenes.
One thing I'll say is that I am super fortunate and very grateful to be at Riot and be able to, in January, leave esports, go to game design, be welcomed into game design, great team, great coworkers, do that for 7 months, then say, hey guys, actually I kind of want to do esports again. Can I do that? And they were like, yeah, sure. Like you can come back. Like that is something that I should absolutely, like I'm not taking for granted, because I feel like I am, just fortunate to be able to make those choices. And now, in like a perfect world, I have spent 7 months thinking deeply about the balance of the game. I feel like I do have like a stronger understanding of what specific champions do. I can talk about all of the patch changes I have individually done.
Sure.
There was actually kind of a funny cycle that I unfortunately realized. When I first joined Riot, I was on basically the same team. I was a QA analyst, and I did some balance changes for about 8 months, 6 to 8 months.
And then LCS
Then I became a caster.
Yeah.
And then I cast for 6 years, and I go back to that team for the 6 to 8 month cycle throughout that. But back in 2013, when I first started casting, I felt like I had a much more intricate handle on how the game worked. So I'd be like, oh yeah, by the way, Thresh Hook moves at 1900 missile speed, and Nautilus Hook is 2000. You don't know that anywhere else than if you're literally looking at the files of the champion, right? So that's cool stuff that I used to have a lot of in my casting, and then after 6 years of not working on the game I didn't have. I feel like I have some of that back now, so I feel like I'm going to come back with a slightly different angle that could maybe be a little more like detailed about specifically what's happening.
But going back to the sort of that moment as you started to realize you wanted to come back.
Yeah.
What did I'm just kind of curious how that conversation went, because I don't know if this was something you built up in your head for a long time, and then you started to kind of put the feelers out there. Like, I don't know if you were like, hey, maybe I could do the dive more often, or if it was literally like, I'm going to schedule a meeting with, I don't know, Dave, and sit down with him and be like, hey, I want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I did schedule meetings with Dave. It's a really like scary discussion to have in both sides, right? When I originally wanted to go to game design, that's a really scary, hard conversation to have, because you're telling people that you've worked with closely and really like and really respect, like, by the way, I want to go do this other thing.
Right.
And I had to do that with game design as well, right? So I did 2 sets of these conversations in 7 months of like, by the way, I think I want to do casting again. So yeah, that's basically it. Like, understand that it's a hard decision. It's a difficult conversation to have. Ultimately, it kind of came down to, hey, I think I've figured out what I want to do, and both parties respected that and allowed me to do it, which is really cool.
Well, from the league community or the spectator standpoint, you told us that you were over us, you were gonna move on, you'd found somebody else, and we all tried to move on, and now you're back. And the question for us is are you gonna stick around? Can we open our hearts back up again to you, or are you just gonna next year find some R&D game that's going on here that you really want to be a part of, or I don't know, how comfortable can we be or secure in knowing that you're here to stay?
If you love something, let it go.
Right.
If it loves you back, it'll just come back in 7 or 8 months. Don't worry about it.
Sure.
Really? No, actually, right now, I'm really happy that I did game design for 7 months, because I think you brought this up earlier in the interview. You've talked to a bunch of the people that have been here since kind of the start of LCS, which has been this incredibly long journey at this point. And we were all so young when we started. I had held other jobs before starting at Riot. I had worked at a movie theater.
Right.
And I was a bartender for 3 months.
But this was
I worked at
beginning of your career.
Yeah, I was an animal service officer. I worked some shifts at the dog pound, right? Then literally it's my first career. And I basically shoot straight into shellcasting for 6 or 7 years. And you're gonna think, what else is out there? So I've kind of tried at least one of the other things that is out there, and it made me appreciate more the thing that I was doing. So I am definitely, I would say, much more committed to shellcasting long-term now than I was even 2 years ago.
Yeah. So you left us, you dated somebody else, and it made you realize all the things you really liked about us, and you decided to come back.
Yeah, and hopefully you're gracious enough to accept my apology for leaving and say, we can do.
We can make this work.
We'll start slow, right? I'm going to cast 3 games. I'm not going to be on the desk all the time.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll take it day by day. Very good. Well, I think maybe that's a good place to end. But is there anything that you want to say to any of the league fans or audience or the people that are going to be tuning in maybe this Saturday and seeing you on the cast?
Yeah, I'm super excited to come back. I hope I don't suck at casting. That's one small fear I have in the back of my mind. You assume that you're going to be able to do it again, but there might be a little bit of rust. It's one thing to watch LCS and be like, oh yeah, looks pretty good.
Right.
And then you want to talk about them for 35 or 45 minutes, depending on the length of the game. But as a caster, as I've learned, Liquid has the lowest average game time of the split and the best gold difference at 15 minutes. So actually, they're a faster team. I didn't know that as a fan until I decided to come back casting, but I now have to know all the stuff, and not just Liquid, what about Optic? How are they doing? Right? So anyway, a lot more work and prep has to go into being a caster. I have to be way more plugged in, and I'm getting there.
Cool.
I'm catching up.
Well, thanks so much for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate it. Welcome back to the studio. It's fun that we got to do this on the stage, because you'll be in here in just a couple days.
Yeah.
For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things esports right here on my YouTube channel. Hey everyone, I am having an amazing day today. This morning, I can't even get into it, but some cool stuff happened, and that makes me happy. And I want you guys to also feel happy. And you know how you can? By checking out alienware.com/Travis and buying something over there, and then using code Travis10 off to save 10%. It's insane. It's insane that they do that, but they do it. And you can go over there. You can find something amazing. They sponsor my content, so this is you helping them because they help me, and then you get to watch this. And it's just a cycle of life. I think that's what the movie. There was Lena. Anyway, I think that's how that movie works. Lion King.